Welcome back everyone to the Money Control live stream. You're watching Markets with Santo and CJ. And Santo, will we be third time lucky? I mean, we are above the 13,000 mark and we have sustained the entire day above that level. And I mean, investors out there would be hoping that, the past two attempts to, stay above that 18,000 mark and probably get into a new, record high territory have failed. But third time lucky, it seems there is a lot of confidence that we could be lucky this time.
I think all the factors are quite supportive at this point in time. Most importantly, sentiment is very much positive, and you have strong money flows as well. So there you go.
Well, look at it. I mean, fourth consecutive session that we are staring at, a green tick on the market. If you look at all the sectoral analysis, barring all sectoral indices are in the green at this point of time. And very crucially, the India VIX index has also fallen about 2% today, which basically goes to show that there's not much appetite among the bears as well to short this market at this point of time. The momentum is too strong. This is a very, very trending market, and you generally don't want to bet against the trend so soon in that trend's journey. And I think going ahead, now it will be crucial to see whether we can take out the 18,200 level or not, which was the previous stop, before we went down to almost 3,000 points down to 15,200. So it will be very crucial to see how traders and even investors behave at this point of time. Will this invite the people who have been sticking to, on the sideline, thinking that there will be a correction, and then they will come in? Will the FOMO factor kick in even more aggressively now going ahead, Santo?
As for the FOMO factor, I think it's already kicking in, and we have seen that over the last week. CJ, you made a point about bears developing cold feet. Now, as much as you would like to vilify the bears, they also serve a very important role in the market ecosystem, right? When they go short and let's say the market falls, it's the bears who then come to cover their positions, and this temporarily gives some kind of a cushion to the market. So bears not being there is not necessarily a good sign. Well, that said, CJ, you saw the rally in the rupee today. Very strong, over 35 paise the rupee has strengthened by, and I think that has again reduced one of the worries for the market, because you just had headlines earlier this week about the RBI spending about $13 billion in August to stabilize the rupee.
I mean, the foreign reserves have dwindled to almost 2-year low. So
exactly. So that is now that concern has been assuaged to some extent. And besides that, CJ, all indicators at this point, as I said, be it sentiment, liquidity, everything seems to be in favor of the market making a new high.
And that makes you a concerned man, doesn't it?
Not really this time. I guess once in a while one just has to go with the flow,
the
CJ.
Last bear has given in. Let's see.
Definitely.
Anyway, of course, besides the market, there were a lot of stocks that were also buzzing in trade today. Santo, starting off with?
Well, Astral Poly. Now, the stock suddenly has seen a very good run up. In fact, after the first quarter numbers, the market had become a little skeptical about the company. But now, over the last couple of weeks, you've seen huge build-up of positions in the derivative segment as well, and some of the technical indicators are indicating that probably the stock is now could be probably overbought. Yesterday, again, huge volumes in the cash market as well, and today it has dropped off very sharply. CJ, my bet would be that probably the rally was not really justified, considering that you had severe margin pressure as well as a drop in top line during the first quarter. And considering that this company's fortunes are very closely linked to that of the construction industry, which anyway tends to take a bit of a backseat during the monsoon season, you don't really stand to expect much from the second quarter numbers as well. Besides that, the margin pressures will start easing only once you probably move into the third quarter. So at this point, maybe the market is getting a little ahead of itself, and probably you could see the stock underperform for a while.
Well, Santo, I mean, if you look at, you spoke rightly that the technical indicators on the stock are clearly blinking that there has been a lot of overbought, a lot of buying in the stock, and the momentum had been very strong. But now it seems a little stressed. It seems like running out of gas at this point of time, and I would not be surprised if some of the short-term traders come in and take some profits at this point of time, realize their profits. If you look at the daily RSI, where the relative strength index, or the money flow index as well, both of which usually are used to track what is the momentum, whether it's whether the stock has been overbought or oversold. They both are indicating at this point of time the stock is overbought, and there is a likelihood of a decent pullback going ahead. So I would probably, if you're a very short-term perspective, probably you would not want to venture at this point of time. But if you're looking at it from a longer term perspective, given that the construction cycle is expected to be very, very strong, we are already underway in terms of a real estate bull market, at least according to a lot of the fund managers I've been speaking to. They believe that we are in a real estate bull market, and in that sense, of course, fundamentally, then a stock like Astral Poly will definitely come into the picture. But in the short term, it may take some knock at this point of time, Santo. Then the next stock on my radar today is Nesco. It's a very interesting stock because if you look at the past 3 months performance, Santo, the stock is higher by about 20-21%. Of course, it's not been a runaway performer, but it's been given a decent amount, steady amount of gains in the market, and a lot of that actually stems from its land bank. So Nesco has a huge amount of land bank. We know in the Goregaon area, it's known for its exhibition center there, the Bombay Exhibition Center there. Clearly, it has a lot of potential to further expand that space, and it is looking to expand that space at this point of time. But apart from that, the valuation of those land bank, it seems that there is some potential for re-rating, because recently there a lot of the deal making that has happened in areas such as Andheri and Juhu, Santo, they're indicating that clearly inflation is now also reaching the real estate space, and therefore analysts at Economics believe that if you look at the intrinsic value of the of the land bank that Nesco has, plus you look at about 850 odd crores of cash on the book at this point of time, that is almost twice of the market cap that the company is commanding right now. So clearly, they believe that there is a lot of potential for re-rating in the stock going ahead. Not talking about the business side of the picture, where they are looking to expand their exhibition center and of course their IT parks going ahead.
Well, I would take the point about cash in hand, but I get a little suspicious when I hear those words land bank. And this was one of the most bandied story back in 2007, 2008 when the market was at its peak, and you had all these real estate companies being in demand,
Yes.
and you ask anybody and simply the two words in which they will describe the story is land bank of X value, land bank of Y value. So that's why I'm a little skeptical. Now I've been just looking at the numbers of Nesco over the last many quarters now, pretty range bound. Now one can also say that it's pretty consistent in some way.
But also the impact of COVID also has been felt very highly on Nesco, given the fact that a lot of the IT companies, employees were not still back to office. Also exhibition centers, in-person exhibition was not happening. So maybe you can account for that as well.
But even before that, if you see, CJ, the numbers have been pretty much range bound. That's how I would put it. But if you say that cash and land bank put together makes it a compelling story, then probably it could be, because I'm really surprised, with revenues of less than 400 crore, the kind of market cap that it commands right now, close to about 5,000 crores.
Yeah.
I feel that's a bit rich, CJ.
Yeah, I mean, there are companies out there who are not even making a profit. So, in that sense, people will probably look at it in that picture. But I think clearly, if you look at it from a very short-term perspective, if the balance sheet is going to improve in that sense, that wherein your asset value is going to increase, the market will have to pay you that price. And I think that is what a lot of analysts also are playing at.
Well, I can see that you got another real estate company up your sleeve
Absolutely,
coming up. So later on,
yeah,
Aarti Industries before that. Now again, a stock which had been written off a few months back, but again over the last couple of months, big run up there, huge traction there. Again, accompanied by huge build up of position in the derivative segment. Now, the strong point here for Aarti Industries is that both the segments that it's present in, specialty chemicals as well as pharmaceuticals, it's kind of a market leader out there. The entry barriers are pretty stiff, and according to Elara, it enjoys that high entry barriers due to both cost and R&D leadership regarding both its products as well as processes. And besides that, Elara is expecting the top line growth to be compounded top line growth between now and FY25 to be around 22%, and net profit growth to be around 25% between now and FY25. And key triggers for the company going forward is the ramp up of its nitrotoluene capacity as well as the entry into the chlorotoluene segment, which is also supposed to be pretty lucrative. So plenty of triggers out there. Elara has a price target of 1088 for the stock.
Sandra, it's a very nice spot. I have to give it to you. I don't think there are too many chinks to pick up in a stock like Aarti Industry. Of course, it has gone through a decent amount of correction in the early part of this year, and the revival that we have seen in chemical names in general has also brought Aarti Industries higher as well. And overall, you know that I have been very bullish on the chemical space, and I
yes.
feel that there is almost there is justified bullishness around that sector.
The perma bull on chemicals, I would say, CJ.
No, I will not go to that extent. Of course, you have to always, acknowledge when the tide is turning against you, as it was earlier this year when raw material prices were going through the roof. But now at least those concerns have now given away, and people are looking at potential for market share gain. A lot of chemical companies, including Aarti Industries, are investing very heavily on capex because they feel that they can win market share in the export market in the coming years. And I think you have to give it to the company for sticking to its guns even when the stock was not performing and there were a lot of question marks. That said, the next stock, yes, Santo, it is from the real estate space, and this is DB Realty. Well, DB Realty has been in news throughout this year. I mean, it's been a very eventful year for the company. There was that, the doomed merger, the stake by Godrej Properties that never happened. Then, of course, late great Jhunjhunwala ji also, of course, subscribed to the warrants of the company. So clearly, it's been a very, very eventful year, and now a new event, it seems, is on the horizon because the stock has been roaring for the past couple of days on the buzz that it could possibly be merged with a subsidiary of a very, very large conglomerate out there, Santo, and it has really excited investors, especially given the the pedigree of the conglomerate in question. Overall, 2022 has been a spectacular year, 101% gains so far, largely driven by the outlook that their sales growth is going to improve very sharply in FY23 and FY24. Real estate has been a major play. A lot of domestic mutual funds, HNIs have been buying into this space. Not only are they buying stocks, but they are actually also buying a lot of real estate also, if you go by the sort of media reports coming in. And overall, going ahead, DB Realty, of course, is a big, say in the SRA projects in and around Bombay. But the new projects that they are developing clearly hold a lot of potential according to the company. And even if you do not focus on the merger conversation, if you just look at it from a fundamental point of view, there's a good story to buy here.
I'm not so sure about the fundamental story. Now, just look at the earnings picture of this company over the last many quarters. The huge swings.
Yeah,
there's been almost
no
top line for many quarters. Then suddenly in the March quarter, you see about 195 crore of top line.
That is because March was that quarter was a spectacular.
Yeah,
quarter
but you don't go from 195 to 6, do you? The June quarter there was just barely 6 crores. So there is this is a stock, I think, where very little public information is available, and this is I would not really hazard a guess out there, but the stock has been performing. But again, the stock price too has been quite volatile. In Feb, you saw a lot of action there, the stock hitting 122, then going back all the way to 50. Again, last few days it's been climbing. So I'm not sure, CJ, unless I see some good numbers out there, I would be very wary of
I think, Santo, I think that is the bet now. Of course, merger talks or no merger talks, I think investors who have now probably participated in the stock would now be waiting for execution from the company. And of course, if that execution doesn't come through, then it will not take a long time for that 101% gains to become probably nothing in that sense.
Well, last stock on a watch list this afternoon is Siemens India. Again, the stock has hit almost a new high, CJ, and good traction once again ever since the company reported its first quarter numbers. Sentiment has clearly been positive. Also, the company saying that it was not seeing any slowdown in capex. Strong order book position there of a little over 17,000 crores. Besides, the order inflow during the quarter was also pretty robust at close to about 5,000 crore. And its mobility division is doing quite well and is expected to gain handsomely from the railways capex plans. Good demand for both electric locomotives as well as the propulsion systems, which it will be making for Vande Bharat train. This apart, it will also be doing a lot of work for the electric and signaling system, and besides making coaches for metro trains as well. So a good story out there, especially considering the fact that you've not seen any slowdown, at least in the last few quarters.
Well, Santo, I mean, the stock is in action today. I mean, there is a lot of buzz around it, of course, because Siemens is also holding its analyst meet today, the annual analyst meet today, and a lot is expected, as you have said, after that spectacular June quarter earnings. Analysts are expecting some very big bang sort of outlook by the company, and let's see whether that plays out or not. I think the coming days will tell with respect to that. But if you look at it from a technical point of view, Santo, I was just going through some of the the momentum indicators such as the MFI or an RSI, and clearly the stock appears to be a little overbought at this point of time, even though it has not seen a very humongous rally. since the June quarter result, but still it seems that there is a possibility for a little bit of profit booking on this counter. On the supply, on the fundamental side, I think the supply side issues that still continue to plague the global economy, that could still have a bearing for Siemens, because project execution could get delayed because of those supply chain issues. They have faced difficulties in the past in procuring a lot of equipment and raw material. If that continues, I mean, there has been indication from the management that things are improving and the situation is easing, but clearly what is happening with China still at this point of time with respect to COVID, and now the the energy crisis in Europe, you would expect that those challenges probably might continue in the near term.
Well, without a quick catch up with the markets, the strength which we've seen in the morning, it still sustains. Nifty above 18,000 mark, up 131 points at 18,067.
And Santo, if you look at the mid-cap space, a little bit of fatigue, it seems, has appeared in the mid-cap and the small-cap space, because the Nifty mid-cap and the small-cap index are higher by only 0.2%. So clearly, the benchmark, is really outperforming today. And, Santo, looking at this, what do you think that probably a lot of our viewers want to know how the trade tomorrow might shape up, given the sort of closing that we are seeing today? Do you want to hazard a guess at this point of time?
Well, some bit of profit taking, given the stupendous run that you've seen over the last few weeks. Some bit of profit taking is but natural. Some bit of trepidation as it the index nears the psychological 18,000 mark. But there's, at the same time, CJ, there's also a very strong sense of FOMO at this moment, and over the last few weeks or almost since June, late June, anyone who has bought the dips has always gained, and there's always a recency bias in the market, CJ. So people normally tend to, when the market is has a very bullish undertone, people normally look at it in comparison with the stock price 1 week back and feel that, hey, this looks pretty very cheap, not looking at the fundamentals. So this is a time when probably you should keep all the fundamental theories aside. That's the only way you stand to make money.
I think, Santo, if you're looking at the global picture as well, clearly at this point of time, it seems like there is a shift of positioning within the emerging market basket. I think the sort of money that we have seen coming in from foreign investors, I think a lot of that is also being driven by passive flow positioning, because it is very likely that India's weight within emerging market portfolios as it is increasing, and that automatically will beget a lot of inflows from foreigners. And you can see that the impact of that in the rupee market as well, which has almost strengthened more than 1 rupee at this point of time in just a couple of weeks. And apart from that, of course, let's not forget, if you and that brings us to our next segment, which is on the horizon. The key indicator or key event that will probably decide how markets shape up tomorrow will be the US inflation data for the month of August. It is the last inflation print that comes in before the US Federal Reserve's monetary policy meeting next week. So definitely this is going to have a bearing on what market feels could happen, or the sort of commentary that the Fed might give in that meeting. Apart from that, Santo, our own wholesale price index data will come out tomorrow for the month of August. So that will also be very interesting to see if raw material prices or wholesale prices have come down, and that could indicate that maybe at this point of time, the pressure on margins of a lot of the companies out there might be reducing or not. So those are a couple of things or couple of economic data points that we need to watch out for.
Well, the big number obviously will be the US inflation number, though there's expected to be some cooling off there.
It's very interesting that the US dollar index is actually quite weak. It has almost fallen 1.5% in the past couple of sessions ahead of that inflation number, when you would have generally expected that they would be expecting some bit of strength in the dollar at this point of time.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Markets with Santo and CJ. Thanks for watching, and please do share your feedback on the show in the comment section below. And
as usual, guys, keep following us on the social media links that you can see at the bottom of your screen. And for the rest of your financial news, stay tuned to moneycontrol.com and download the Money Control app. We'll catch you again live tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Till then, have a great day.